Hello and welcome to Tabletopics with Bill. Today's episode is for the players. We're going to be talking about how to get into playing your character.
I know more than you.
Okay guys, so whether you're an experienced gamer or you're just delving into playing tabletop role-playing games for the first time, a request was put forth for me to talk about how players can get into playing their characters. So the first thing is, typically when people learn how to play D&D, they pick a race, they pick a class, they roll up their stats, they choose what kind of weapons their character has, and then they play the game. Now, who are they playing? For most newer players who maybe don't have experience doing improv or acting, most newer players just basically are themselves, right? So let's say I'm Bill, the new player, and I'm playing a dwarf fighter. So my dwarf fighter is basically just me. All right, Bill, you're interacting in a inn with a group of rough and tumble kind of pugilists who don't like dwarves very much. What do you? They start pushing you around and they spill your drink. What do you do? All right, well, I tell them, you guys are being jerks, knock it off, or there's going to be a fight. Okay, well, they laugh and they say, bring it on. All right, well, I guess I'm rolling initiative. Boom. There's an interaction. So really all I was is just Bill playing a character who happens to be a dwarf and a fighter. So how do you get into a character once you've made it? Well, if you've watched any of my Build with Bill episodes, the first thing that I do when I'm building a character before I pick a race or a class is I think about the concept of the character. So if you build a character the right way, the Bill way, if you will, then you've already thought about this character. And once you have a character that's more than just a race and a class and a weapon, then you start to think more about that character. And the idea is this. The best way for you to get into character, into playing your character, is the same way that an actor would prepare for a role, right? You have to know the character. And this is your character. You made it. So if you don't know it well enough, that's because you didn't flesh it out. So making the character the right way is one way to start. But the next way is, once you've made that character and you've thought about who that character is, what their values are, that kind of stuff, then you've created a little deeper character, then how do you get into playing that character, all right? This really just dovetails into acting. And the reason why a lot of people really like a lot of the big popular streaming shows now are because the players on those games are good at acting. Not everybody who plays D&D is good at acting. That doesn't mean you can't have fun. And it also doesn't mean that if you're not acting out some role that you're doing it wrong, okay? The number one rule is always have fun. But let's say that you're watching this video because maybe you want to learn how to get into character more. And that's where I think that acting analogy works, okay? So let's study your character, all right? I just made up the Dwarven Fighter. Now, one thing I didn't mention was the background, okay? So in the player's handbook, there are backgrounds. And when you're making your character, you should strongly consider the background even before you finalize your race and class decisions, because that background informs who your character is and what he or they believe, okay? So I'm gonna I randomly opened up here to the folk hero background, and there's not a lot to look on camera, so we'll just cut back to me reading it to you. But really, the folk hero background is a very basic background that's accessible to any person who's trying to play a character who's kind of like, generally speaking, good, okay? So the folk hero, you come from a humble social rank, but you're destined for so much more. Already, the people of your home village regard you as their champion, and your destiny calls you to stand against the tyrants and monsters that threaten the common folk everywhere. So they give you the stats, skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, equipment, and then they tell you there was a defining event that made you who you were. You previously pursued a simple profession among the peasantry, perhaps as a farmer, miner, servant, shepherd, woodcutter, or gravedigger, but something happened that set you on a different path and marked you for greater things. Choose or randomly determine a defining event that marked you as a hero of the people. So most of the backgrounds have something similar to this that help you flesh out that background and specify it for your character concept. Why is this important? Well, because knowing this means knowing more about your character. Knowing more about your character helps you act and get into role-playing your character more. It's not easy. I'll tell you that right now. If it were, everybody would be Matthew Mercer and the cast of Critical Role. It takes a long time, but this game is fun, and I'm going to tell you from personal experience that it's more fun when you get into your character. So defining your character through that kind of stuff. Now, every background has a similar pattern where they provide you with a list of pre-generated personality traits. You can choose one, or if nothing on the list for that particular thing works, just write up your own. But what D&D 5th edition is trying to do here, people, is to help you get into your character more by giving you these things in the backgrounds that help define your character more. It's like having a cheat sheet for how to act out your character, okay? That's how I want you to think about it. These are notes like an actor would have when they're doing a role in a movie or a TV show or in a stage production. These are notes for how your character feels about stuff. Okay, so personality traits. When I set my mind to something, I follow through no matter what gets in my way. I judge people by their actions, not their words. I'm confident in my own abilities and do what I can to instill confidence in others. Thinking is for other people. I prefer action. Okay, those are all just examples at random from the personality traits provided for the folk hero background. Let's say that I like more than one. Well, then great. Pick 2 or 3. If that helps you to know your character in your mind and in your heart, what your character would think and feel, then pick as many as you need to. And if there aren't any on this list, write up your own little short summary of some of the personality traits or values that your character has, okay? Now, in addition, each background also has a table for ideals, bonds, and flaws, okay? So the ideal is something that basically is meant to be a guiding principle or an ideal or a value that your character has that helps guide your character's actions and their choices, okay? I'm just going to pick one right now. So fairness. No one should get preferential treatment before the law, and no one is above the law. All right, if I choose that, that means that when I'm playing the game to get into my character, I have to remember that. I have to remember that my dwarven fighter feels strongly about that no one is above the law, and that anytime circumstances come up in the game, whether it's in social interactions or just different plot points, that I have to remember that that's how my character feels. Now, I personally, Bill Allen, might not feel that way, but that's not the point. I'm playing in character. That's the role-playing part of it, R-O-L-E. I'm playing a role. That's acting, okay? So that's one of my guiding principles. And again, just like any other table, if you can't find one that they provide, write up your own. But the point is that you need those notes, this outline that helps you remember who your character is so that you can play into your character. Okay, then we have the bond category. So, if you make a character who has no family, no loyalty towards their community, no religious beliefs or philosophical guiding principles, what is that character? Just a random jumble of numbers. So the bond feature is something that's important in a background because it gives your character some humanity. It gives them connections to other people. We are all connected, right? Now, maybe you choose a background that doesn't have that, but that bond feature, once again, will help you to get into playing your character. So here's an example. A proud noble once gave me a horrible beating, and I will take my revenge on any bully I encounter. I don't know if that fits with my dwarven fighter, so maybe I'll pick another one. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. I like that. Okay? So this is a defender, a person who, first of all, believes that no one's above the law, and second now, this bond is that this is a protector. If this person sees someone else being treated unjustly or being bullied, this person's going to be a defender. And again, this should come up in a game. Now, while this particular video that we're talking about is about you guys as players learning more how to get into your character, it's also a reminder to DMs. Every good DM should know what the party is made up of. Every good DM should know and have a little cheat sheet of the backgrounds, including the ideals, bonds, and flaws of each character, and create scenarios in the storyline to challenge your characters. That's what a good DM should do. So if you're a player and you picked all this stuff up and the DM never runs any adventures where any of your ideals or bonds or flaws are challenged, then, maybe nicely, like outside of the game table, suggest one-on-one to the DM, hey, is there a way that you can like create some scenarios where like we get to play our characters more and, maybe some group of peasants are being treated unjustly so that I can kind of fulfill my bond, that kind of stuff. D&D and all role-playing games should be collaborative and interactive. So there's a give and take. There's a flow between the DM and the player and the other players at the table. Okay, so if you're not being challenged, if your ideals and your personality choices and your traits and your bond and flaws, if those aren't being brought up in the game, your DM needs to know that and be asked to please integrate that into the game. But a good DM should be doing that already. Now, as a player, you've chosen, some personality traits, an ideal, a bond, and then a flaw. Now, role-playing games are not games that you win. It's not like Monopoly. I win. I won at D&D. The best way to win is to have fun and play your character well. As a player, I win all the time. You know how? Because I make interesting characters that are fun to play. I have fun playing them. And then I win by playing my character well. That's winning. So why would you have a flaw then? Well, a flaw keeps you grounded. Every hero has a flaw, right? Even like Superman has a flaw. Everybody has a flaw. Why? Why do people have dump stats in games? Why do they have one low stat? Because that flaw keeps you grounded. It keeps you human. And it makes your character, that flaw can often make your character more interesting. And circling back to our topic for this video, it helps you to play your character, to have some flaw, okay? So in our example that I'm building right now, this dwarven fighter, remember that, I believe that no one's above the law. I feel that I must protect those who cannot protect themselves. And now what's my flaw? I'm convinced of the significance of my destiny and blind to my shortcomings and the risk of failure. That could be fun. That's a hero who sees themselves as, on this great heroic quest that they're myopic. They don't even see their own shortcomings. But maybe not. The people who knew me when I was young know my shameful secret, so I can never go home again. I have a weakness for the vices of the city, especially hard drink. Maybe. I have trouble trusting in my allies. Maybe. Secretly, I believe that things would be better if I were a tyrant lording over the land. Nah. I'm convinced of the significance of my destiny and blind to any shortcomings and the risk of failure. So there are a few good options here. Now, what if, you might be like, Bill, what if there's none, I don't like any of those? Then what if you go to the flaws of another background? So here, now I'm going to flip the page at random and find another background and see if those flaws would work. Okay. Flaw, this is under the charlatan. I can't resist a pretty face. I'm always in debt. I spend my ill-gotten gains on decadent luxuries faster than I bring in. I'm convinced that no one could ever fool me the way I fool others. I'm too greedy for my own good. I can't resist swindling people. I hate to admit it and will hate myself for it, but I'll run and preserve my own hide if the going gets tough. All right, so those are flaws for the charlatan background, but it would almost be really interesting if our folk hero fighter dwarf, who has these ideals about no one's above the law and protecting others, what if he had a flaw where he was kind of a coward? I hate to admit it and will hate myself for it, but I'll run and preserve my own hide if the going gets tough. That is self-loathing, if ever, right? Because he's supposed to be a person who stands up for others. And he'll try, but if it comes down to a matter of life or death, he's not willing to risk his own life for others. And that goes against his ideal, and therefore it's the ultimate flaw. And it wasn't even on, oh my God, that's great, I should write that down. Somebody make that character. Do you understand how exciting this is? I'm excited right now while we're making this video. I didn't plan this out. And I'm excited because when I think about that character, now I see the whole picture. I see this person with these virtues and these values and these beliefs, but I also see them very human or very mortal, very grounded. He's flawed, and that's good. It's a good thing. So now we're starting to paint this picture of this character. How do I get into that character? Well, on a very two-dimensional level, I could develop acting for my character, okay? So if you've ever watched any number of role-playing games or movies with dwarves, you'll know that what I'm about to say is largely true. Dwarves always speak with a Scottish accent. Why? I don't know. Why? Why do all Americans who think that they're good role players play with an English accent? Well, you ever thought about that? If you're a newer player, maybe you don't know, but if you're an older veteran player, you're probably laughing right now because it's just so simply true. Why does everybody use an English accent? Why is it that if you make a rogue and you're an American role-playing game player, you speak with a Cockney accent? Why? There's no reason for that. So the first thing I'm going to dispel is accents do not qualify as role-playing. They can, but by themselves, they are not role-playing. They're just an affect that you've put on for a character. Voices don't necessarily equate to role-playing and getting into your character. So that myth needs to be dispelled right away. Now that said, I've done accents. I have characters who I do accents for, but that's just an add-on because I know that character and I'm consistent in role-playing that character. Role-playing and getting into your character really comes down to building and thinking about a character that's more than just a couple little two-dimensional facts on a sheet of paper. It's imagining what that character would do all the time. When I get into a character, when I build a character, I think about it. I'll be like in the shower thinking about what that character would do if they were ambushed in a city at nighttime. I'd get it, I'd be eating lunch and thinking about what that character would do if he were invited to a dinner banquet at the local noble's mansion. Like, that's getting into your character. Think about what your character does, who they are, what they believe in, and then begin acting that out consistently. That's why these things are on your character sheet. And you can go beyond that. So before 5th edition had all these things, I borrowed from other games. So I had like little notes about courage, about convictions, self-control, about my conscience, about piety, my religious beliefs. I had these different like little notes and personality traits written down to kind of help guide me on how to play my characters. So getting into your character really is simply mentally getting into your character, knowing your character, and then also emotionally kind of feeling your character. Now, when you're at the table and you're playing this character, there are some things that you can do to prepare. Read over your sheet, know everything that you can about your character, review your notes, think about how your character would act in different circumstances. And then also, while you're at the table, instead of saying, when the DM asks what you do in any given scenario, don't be like, I guess my character does this, or he goes there. Say, I do that. I go there. By using I, you're becoming your character at the table, okay? I approach the noble. I bow humbly, and I say, greetings, I am Magnus of the Western Woodland. dwarves. It is my honor to be here, my lord. Maybe your character isn't well-spoken. Maybe your character has a dump stat in charisma, or they're very shy, or maybe they have some other flaw. Maybe your character has like a speech impediment or some issue. Play that out, okay? And I mean that respectfully. I don't want anybody jumping on like the hate Bill bandwagon. I'm not saying make fun of people. I'm saying be true to your character. And by being true to your character, you'll have more fun at the table. You'll have more fun with your players. Your DM will have a richer environment. Your DM will be challenged to incorporate your character into this. So getting into your character, hopefully this will be something that you can try. If you have questions, if you have other ideas about how people can get into character, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. I'm usually very good about responding to people's questions, and I love when my community shares their experiences on how they get into character. So thanks for watching this video. Of course, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, liking our videos, and check out all the other great content we have. Thanks as always, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.